Yeah, destroy it. No, contact!
Hold the line!
5, 2, 3, 9. Yep, direct take, keep firing.
Good day, everyone. Another special stream in a response for another special stream. But let's get this going. So it is I, Dark Leftovers, the most humble orc of the clan, joined today with our favorite grandpa, Avidus,
Glory in his eternal name, brothers.
and then we have the fearless leader himself, Razor,
Hey guys, what's up?
and special guest star as always, Kaczynski.
Afternoon and good evening.
All right, we got a good one today. So Razor, you want to start us off?
Yeah, like the first thing I wanna start with, yeah, because it's kind of killing me. I know if you already subscribed to us, even if you didn't have to do that. But the thing that's killing me, everybody did it in the pre-intro of the stream where you can't really even hear the actual subscribe sound. So I'm just gonna replay Idol's subscribe message because he's the latest one. Mind you guys, like Avitus has no idea what it is, right? So I really want to play it so everybody can actually hear it. I'm gonna probably add like video for it later on as well, but didn't have time for that. So here it goes.
Oh, that's a spicy meatball! Oh! That is a spicy meatball! Oh, God!
It's a joke.
When did I even say that?
You-
I can't even remember saying that.
Don't worry about it.
You know you can't have a conversation with Razor because he'll just press
God,
two buttons and bam, it's
know.
clipped.
Yeah.
Yeah, so moving on, there's another little special thing we want to show you guys. And the most important part about this special thing is we really need to like thank Patchouli out of the bottom of our hearts. Like, honestly, I don't think even if we would have paid somebody to do them or whatever, like nobody would have understood what we wanted, or like we didn't even give proper instructions or anything. Just like Klaus just asked Patchouli to help us with some emotes, and they're incredible, honestly. Like I loved them from the first second I saw them, and yeah, we hope you guys are gonna enjoy them. We know we do. I was pretty hyped about today, honestly, only for the emotes, really.
I love how he's got my personality down to a T just by the glowing red eyes.
Spot on Avitus.
I think I love how it fits perfectly for Twitch, and I don't know if we can get them in the Discord as well because they're just so succulent.
Oh yeah, I think we could probably get them on the Discord as well. That's a very good point. Very good point, Dark. I'm gonna look into adding them because they're extremely well made, and you like again, Patchouli's like quality in art is just incredible. It's not a coincidence that the contest all went in that direction.
It's just another example of just how talented like some members of the Foxhole community are, and I think that's when I'm getting at like how lucky we are to have like some of the people that we have in our community. Not all communities have talented artists like Patchouli and other people, So I think we're really lucky to have them, and thank you very much.
Razor showing off he's the only one that can post.
yeah. Unfortunately, I mean, I think most of you know, but unfortunately, we if we could give them out, all of them instantly, we would have. But Twitch rules are Twitch rules, so we can't really have more than one free for the first year. But hopefully, once you guys like give us a subscribe now and again. We can unlock more for you, and hopefully Patchouli is gonna be willing to help us read more, because the moment I saw him, I'm speechless. I don't even know where to begin to describe how much I love him.
Thank you for the follow, you non-essential scum.
Right. Well, we've got a lot to get through today, gentlemen.
Yeah, we should probably keep moving then. Yeah, Hans, we'll make sure after the stream I'm gonna look into like putting them in the Discord as well. Thanks for the host as well, Idol. Right. So it's kind of a bit of a tradition, I would say, that we talk a bit about the war as well in our streams, and it's a pretty interesting war. So I think today is a good day to do that as well. I know if you guys followed it a lot, but aside from yesterday, I didn't have a lot of time. Let's just go around the table, see what thoughts everybody has on them. Kaz, you've been pretty quiet.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I have been watching. Like, I played the first day of the war and then the op, and I just kind of watched things go sideways really fast, because I'll check in on like Foxhole stats, whatever. Like, hey, that blue is disappearing mighty fast for a few days into the war, and so. Obviously the biggest thing I think is some frustration over the MPF situation and all that. But both times that I played were times that DK was on, and we've been awesome. At least the two times that I was playing with any time. So I felt really good about the inputs that we put into the war. But DK can only do so much. But every time that we've been on in a concerted effort, a concerted group, we've made some pretty impactful differences in some really sketch situations. So it's been cool. It's been good.
I mean, personally, I think that it's been coming for the past two wars, in my opinion, where it was getting to the point where the colonials have lost 6 wars in a row, something like that. And that's bad enough. It's damaged the game enough already. So the devs are we're definitely looking for a way to crowbar a win in for the colonials. Now, I'm not using that as an excuse, but we all know what's going on. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure it out. What tends to happen, in my opinion, in wars is wardens tend to get pushed back, and I think they looked at that, and then they looked at how they could set the map up where we would have a massive disadvantage as soon as we got pushed back off our first defensive line, and that is losing our mass production factory. Once we've lost once you don't have a mass production factory, especially in a small scale war, the war's over. It's just a matter of time, really, because you just can't produce enough to keep the enemy at bay.
So, do you really think that the devs premeditated an advantage with this map setup? Because I think the map setup's fairly neutral. I guess maybe I'm misreading it, but
I don't think they might not have set out with it all in mind. Yeah, this is definitely going to happen. But I think they set it up in a way where it was more likely to come out with a colonial victory, especially with and I have no problem with that, to tell you the truth. With the way
I hear you. I'm just skeptical that was the play. That's all.
If you look, the way they probably view wars is they probably look at what's happened on average over the past 6 wars, and on average, what tends to happen is we get pushed back in our defensive line, and we hold out, and then we get battle tanks or whatever, silver hands, and then we push out and retake the map in a counter attack. What's happened this time is obviously the colonials have pushed us back because they have the numbers, because obviously faction changes and stuff to help them out and stuff. They had the numbers, so they did what they've been doing on average most of the time, and they pushed us back. But this time, one of our frontline maps was the only town with a mass production factory in it for our entire faction. So I think overall they probably knew what was going to happen.
But I think it's just laziness, dude. I think it's like, we're gonna flip the map on the side and we're not gonna do anything to balance it at all. I think it was that level of carefree attention to it. Is my
to
perspective.
to go to Kaz's point, one thing I noticed is the refineries were still on the map once they restarted up the resistance phase. So, thank you, Harry. So what I'm trying to say is they actually did that, like they were doing it while they were setting it up. Like they did no preparing. The map wasn't even ready when they resetted the war, and I can understand because like the war finished in a weekend, so they just worked on setting it up on Monday. Even war was even a bit late because of all of it. So yeah, I think what Kaz is saying kind of holds truth in the way that they didn't put the effort needed to set up the war properly, and it might be just an unintended consequence, really. But the I would say they still kind of are thinking it, even if they didn't act on it with intent, like as was saying. You know what I mean? Like maybe even unconsciously. Look at the tech tree again. That's another point.
That's a spicy meatball.
Thank you, Klaus.
Oh, that is a spicy meatball.
The
So
tech tree I can't speak to because I haven't even looked at the tech tree.
well, I'll tell you what the main issue I have with the tech tree, the fact that yet again they get a lot more variety than we get, more ways to get what they need. So, for example, the main issue with why randoms had no chance of holding ground, because again, clans can be there 24/7. Clans take breaks. Clans, you know, like Avitus pointed out so many times. It goes down to what random people can do without constantly having support from experienced people, right? And the reality of this war was a stage where the colonials had the mortar half tracks, the colonials had the half tracks, and we basically had FATs, right? So you could say we had FATs to keep at bay their vehicles, but their mortar half tracks would just like take down our FATs from a distance, and there was nothing to do other than go with stickies and sticky them, right? But the problem is to have people do that is like extremely hard because it needs people that actually know what they're doing. You need experienced people that know how to go on a flank, know how to throw a sticky. Because again, I don't think you guys realize, but like stickies, especially for people that are not used to them, they're not the most easy to use tool, right? You can easily miss it, even if it travels real fast now. But if you don't
you
know
have
how
to flank with it. I mean, you just can't
Yeah.
charge at the vehicle, and most players don't understand flanking.
yeah, so it's a huge issue, and like Klaus was saying here, because the fact that we didn't tech HACs, yeah, that might be a thing. Maybe like the heavy ACs would have helped with the half trucks. That's true, but at the same time, I don't think they would have helped with everything else, right? Currently, we really don't have an answer for the mortar half tracks, at least from a simple point of view, right? Similar to how colonials were saying they have no answer for the silver hand because there wasn't a dedicated tank to respond to that. In the same way, we don't have a dedicated RT or whatever you want to call it to counter it. Like our best counter to mortar half tracks is a grenade launcher right now. Aside from stickies, of course, but stickies imply that you need to be extremely close.
How will you get? I guess we'll talk about it later. But Grody Gamer just said something that like makes me laugh.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's another factor that a lot of people have pointed out, where the wardens on the colonial team have been showing the colonials how to use their own equipment. Again, yeah, and I'm sorry to try and to like agree with it, but people that say that have a point. Like I saw exactly what I would be expecting the colonials to do all this time. I saw it the first time this war, right? Like I saw actually 3 mortar half trucks attacking us instead of 1, which in the past never almost happened. This time, with wardens on the other side, it started happening, right? that's a good example of and again, I think this is a good example of a war where the mortar half track has been used at its full potential, and you can see the results of that, right? Literally, like, there was no way to keep ground. And I'm not saying this to find excuses. I'm just saying it's the reality. It's not that we didn't try to defend against them, and we mostly succeeded when we were online. I think, especially from what I follow from our squads, right? We had squads, for example, BAF is a good example, right? We had the squad in BAF for like I think 8 hours, right? And at some point, during EU morning, where Americans go to sleep as well, the squad was done. There was nobody to pick up the shift, so to say, the morning shift on the EU, and BAS fell immediately because there was only randoms that were low level and didn't know how to deal with the vehicles left, and they couldn't put up with all the pressure. And it's understandable. It's not their fault. Like, for sergeants and such, they're just like focused on that front line, and they're not really looking for flanks. It's really hard for them to deal with such a weapon, honestly.
Well, the first war that they were introduced, like we saw how bad they can really be. Like they pushed us so far up when the mortar half tracks were first released. It's a real advantage for what they were given. The placement where they were in the tech tree was not like justifiable, because again, there was like no counter until, you can even say to an extent too, for until howitzers are there. You get what I mean? And I don't know, because even like when you try to sticky it can still outmaneuver the
Yeah.
guys. Like
It's
unless
extremely
you can-
fast, yeah.
yeah, unless you can completely like catch it off guard, where it's like encased from other defenses. But this is the thing, is they're almost always behind some type of defense, and they
Yeah.
can creep their stuff forward as long as they have it forward. And it's just like, you can't use field equipment to deal with it, because it's gonna find it and it's gonna kill the crew with the gun.
The counterplay to the mortar half track is regrettably the mortar half track misplaying. And it has to misplay, and you have to play exceptionally well to outplay them, right? Because it has to put itself in an environment it has no business being in for you to leverage that. Like, but if the Colonials, for instance, do, a very methodical, purposeful bunker hop siege with the mortar half tracks anchoring that advance, that's unstoppable at a certain stage of the war, unless there's an overwhelming manpower advantage on the Ward side.
Certainly when they've got a line of MG half tracks in front of them as well, which they had yesterday, that were just advancing with infantry behind them. I mean, even though we are losing this war, it was refreshing yesterday to actually fight an enemy that was fighting back.
I mean, after yesterday, Avidus, the tables turned, mate.
Yeah,
like, I mean,
I was about to say.
it's not nearly as dire as it was Saturday morning.
And you need to remember that from here, every day that passes is getting closer to where wardens shine. To once tanks unlock, once FA unlocks as well. Those are all tools that will favor us, and the more answers we have to the mortar half track, the better our chances are. It always was.
I just think our production's going to be what knacks us in the end.
Well, that's a big truth on that, because it's what keeps Logi players in the game. And if they have to do it more physically by hand instead of just using the mass production factory, they're going to be burnt out real quick. And that's just the big scare right now, is if the wardens can't recapture that mass production factory, it's going to look very, very hairy once we get to late game.
And that's what was unbelievable about yesterday, is that we have two mass production factories churning out mortar half tracks and half tracks, just like pouring them in on an assembly line into Drown Vale, and we were just smashing them over and over and over again. We killed them 3-1. I think when we did the math on it, it was either 3 or 4-1 on the armor trades that we made through the op yesterday, which was obscene. Just the number of dead colonial vehicles.
I mean, yeah, it's like I literally saw sergeants on the colonial side just running around in mortar half trucks, just using them as trucks. So that's the abundance, Like he was like my car? Oh yeah, I love it. Can I have it?
They were charging them into tier 2 trenches just to get rid of the trenches in our lines. It's crazy.
Which was pretty useful though, because it made it easier for us to actually take
you
them and also take them from them, because like that's
Yeah,
that's our best option right now, is to just steal their stuff and use it against them.
But I mean, to what kind of Pollen's point, I've enjoyed the fight, so to speak.
Oh yeah,
Just yesterday for the couple hours, I was only able to play a couple hours, but had an absolute blast being under equipped, so to speak, and still making plays. It was fun. We had a lot of fun.
yeah. It was refreshing to have such a hard fight on our hands, and I think actually everybody enjoyed it. I saw a lot of people staying for a lot longer for the op. Traditionally ops would
Kind of
be
normal.
yeah, traditional ops would be starting to fade out faster in the past because of less resistance, so people would get bored. But now, because there was always something to do, always a flank, always an attack coming, people were engaged for longer, which felt really really good, honestly, from everybody.
Can we just talk briefly about a little bug that has been getting on my absolute tit weeks, and it's the reason why I had to uh, sit in a queue twice yesterday. The binos bug.
Yeah, that's terrible.
So when you're using the binos, it'll like bug your character out, and you can't move or whatever, and you have to log out of the game. And if you log out, obviously it puts you to the back of the queue, so you're just sitting in a queue again. It's just absolutely like they need to fix that so badly because it's such an integral part of the game.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I couldn't understand why they would leave that. Well, I mean, how many days of this war has it been? And this has been known since binos were unlocked. Like, like you can get glitched off these, and there's no hot fix. No anything.
Since last war, you still got bugged in the back of a half track with them as well. So it's been going on since last war.
I'm pretty sure a lot of people reported it at this point, but we're not gonna realistically get something done until after the war, probably at this point.
Well, one thing I would say, just you don't have to log out to get it fixed. You just gotta get someone to kill you.
Oh.
At least that's what I had with me. Just
that's what
kills me.
That's the workaround, basically. What I've been using as well, and on land you have options, but on water it's pretty fucking silly having people like spot with bar just for gunboats. Jesus Christ, it's just silly. It's really silly. Yeah, hopefully though we might, but realistically I wouldn't expect it to be fixed until next war, honestly, from experience. Right, so let's keep moving, because I think that's enough for the war for now.
Let's get on. Yeah, let's get on with it.
Hopefully we can come back to it if it's still on next time we talk here. So we actually had a really nice question from Summoner here. Dark,
First question.
I know you're excited about it, so I'll give it over to you.
I wasn't trying to be mean, but I was gonna put a voice, but I'll just read it normally. So Summoner says, "Dear podcast people, I have some food for your brain. Since Foxhole is more of an interwar period between the two world wars, the main communication systems were carriers, wire telephones." Well, sorry, outside just started like pouring. It scared the hell out of me. I thought a pipe just broke. Where was I? Wire telephones and some basic unreliable radios. That would be. What would the game be like if we didn't have modern communication methods like Discord, TeamSpeak, and the in-game Whoop squad?
It'd be like playing Colonials.
I was just gonna call it shit, but that's even better.
Oh my god, Cass. That was like extremely brutal. Nobody was expecting that.
I imagine what someone is getting at is, what would the game be like if we had something more akin to like Project Zomboid's levels of communication, for anybody who knows that game, where you sort of like your radios are really like short distance or wherever, maybe you can only broadcast half a map or something like that, and if you want to get a message further, you'll have to send someone on a bike to, like, as a runner or something like that. Is that something that you think he's getting at? Or?
Yeah. I think some of
It's
their
a world that doesn't have TeamSpeak,
I mean,
Discord.
I was
think
only partly kidding, by the way.
I think
Just so you know, because that's how a lot of the colonial fights actually go, is them talking to each other on the fronts using the in-game VoIP, and there's little to no coordination outside of that, from what I understand.
yeah, I mean, I think it could be it would be awesome, dude. The problem with it is you would need every single player on the game with it on board with it. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, that just wouldn't be a thing. Like it would need to be established from the word go, really. And even still, you'd still get people using Discord. You know what I mean? It would severely impact. Although it would be fun for a clan like ours, where we could take on the challenge of maybe our communications, we can do it this way. But a lot of clans, a lot of people just wouldn't be into it, and they just use a third-party software to make it.
That's the real thing, is that no matter what, if there's a poor communication system in game, there would always be a counterpart third-party system to help boost for that, because it's something that clans and organized groups really need to function, is to be able.
I mean, I have a bit of experience with this, actually, because I play on a DayZ roleplay server, where obviously communication, it's just like whoever you meet on the road, or whoever you happen to overhear their conversation on the radio that you're using or something like that. That's the only way that you really get in communication with people in game.
Well, think barotrauma.
Or barotrauma. But like, you still get groups of people on that game using third-party software to communicate with each other, because the in-game communication is very, very limited. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so while the idea sounds really cool from my perspective, like, just imagine how cool it would be for people to just use like actual radios, or like even little structures where they're designed
people.
exactly, they're designed to be able to send messages between towns or even between maps. That would be
It
pretty
would be
cool, like to receive updates of what's happening on other maps via a little communication center or whatever. But
I think the way that it could be implemented in game, and this is the only way I can really think of it working, is if you take it out of the player's hands and have something along the lines of, if you want, say you've set your spawn in abandoned ward, for argument's sake, yeah, you've set your spawn in abandoned ward, so you get intelligence that is linked to abandoned ward. So you would get, for instance, all of the radio towers around abandoned ward, and then if it's got a link to, let's say, Callahan's boot, then you'd get all that radio information as well, and so on and so forth. However, if your faction captures the base way behind enemy lines and start building radio towers around it and shit like that, if that base is not connected by one of these radio lines or whatever, then the people that don't have their spawn set with to that linked base wouldn't receive that intelligence. And I think that's the only way it could really work in terms of sort of in-game practicality.
Segregating basically what you can see depending on in-game stuff. Yeah, that could be a way to go. Because and it also might even help with a lot of the griefing and like people using alts and stuff, right? If the intel wouldn't be available for everybody at a click of a button, it would be more segregated depending on where you are and what you're interacting with.
And it would also mean that you could, for instance, send partisans out. So say if you say your clan is going to attack a town that's on the edge of, it's on the front line, but it's segregated or something like that, and you want to get the element of surprise, you could send a group of partisans to take out the link, the communication towers or something like that link that base to the rest of the colonial faction or the warden faction. Which means that base's intelligence would only be limited to the people who have their spawn set at that base. I think that would actually be really cool now I'm thinking about it. It would be sick as fuck. It would add another layer to the game that I think would be really good.
It's somewhere on the list after balancing revolvers and shotguns.
Yeah.
And that's
And
a far list.
trains and submarines and all the rest of it. But yeah,
Can I also add the two big fucking depressions of my life, which are the squad system and the operation system? If we're just adding stuff to the pile.
Yeah. Well, what makes that even worse, not to derail it, but is that they had a system that worked and then they made it worse.
Yeah, well,
I mean, it wasn't
yeah.
great, but you actively made it worse in many respects.
The biggest frustration for me was the squad system where the officer function was removed for no apparent reason, at least for us. You know, like for the ones of you who didn't get to play on that period of time, all squads basically had an owner, so to call it, the guy who actually made the squad. And he had the ability to nominate officers of the squad, right? He could say, I made the squad, I'll make Avitus, Dark, and Kaczynski my officers. So when I'm not online, they can accept people in the squad, they can basically manage the squad. But I'm the owner of the squad in the end, you know. But I can give people access to it by making them officers. And you know, for the life of me, I can't understand why was that removed without anything to come in its place.
I think you have correct me if I'm wrong, but you have a Under the Helmet coming up in the next few weeks that talks about communication, don't you, Kaz?
Yeah, we're planning on putting communication on the list, and yeah, I was thinking, the next one's probably going to be on delegation, proper delegation, proper taking initiative, and communication is such a significant element of that. It's likely going to be linked to that.
Cool. Well, make sure you keep an eye out for that one, guys, because I'm sure that we'll talk about in-game intelligence and communicating that and stuff like that. So that's something to watch out for.
Let's get to the next topic now. This was a good question. Now, glad hopefully more people can submit more.
Yeah, that was really nice of you, Summoner. We really appreciate taking the time, mate. And everybody else, feel free to chip in if you guys wanna ask anything. Right. So let's go to the actual hard part of the discussion here, the development update. And a lot of people were excited, and they promised for it to be big, and it was big in my opinion, but it wasn't big in what I was expecting. Like I was hoping. Well, you guys know what I was hoping for, but none of what I was hoping was even close, I guess. So yeah, let's just
look at this.
Let's just jump right in the first thing, which is probably the most disastrous of things. Like Kaz already is like laughing his laugh, and because of I want to remind you guys, because like I don't wanna put Kaz in the spot here, but he's a bit of an expert on things like communication and stuff. So I think I really want to hear from him first, and then I'll probably pitch in with my own memes about it.
Yeah, so again, I am more than happy to be wrong about this, but when I first saw this, I think I forget my initial reaction, but I don't think I made a verbal sound, like a sound that was sensible. I was like, "What in the world is this? What are we doing here? Why is this a priority?" And I don't even know where to start. I really need to. I'm a little flat-footed here because I've got so many directions. Like I know intuitively that this is bad. I'm struggling to find the objective way to explain why this is so bad and so poor. So I'll pass for a second. But
I just love how this it like draws so many like similarities to like China, where you like get a citizen's rating and stuff like that. You know what I mean? You got a low rate and then you go into the gulag sort of thing. Oh my god.
We do not like your post. Downvote them, everyone. Send them to gulag.
So it's funny.
We're gonna get so much grief for this, right? Because we already get grief for using our votes responsibly, so to speak, with griefing players. Now, like if somebody's got a bad comms rate, it's like, oh, it's just 82 DK. You know what I'm saying? Like we can't win here.
The question is, I don't mean to
go ahead.
The question is, who asked for something like what spawned to need to take time to add an up and down vote system for, you know what I mean? Like we already got rid of all world chat, you know what I mean? So why do we need more filtering and whatnot just to silence
Maybe
more people?
maybe this is. I mean, I can appreciate from our point of view that this might seem quite unnecessary, but maybe from a colonial point of view, it's a little bit more prudent to have something like this put in. I mean, I know it's not a very good method, and it's comedic almost, but it's. I think they're trying to stem down the useless information.
Well, I get where you're going at, and this is kind of where it's actually, this is 100% moderation is hard, and we don't want to deal with it. So we're going to find a system with which to defer moderation to the players, and they're presuming rational, reasonable human beings to participate in this process to move bad, toxic communication out and bring relevant communication forward by making it more desirable. But that just doesn't work. Yeah, like, I mean, we already see elements of this in how Reddit works, and Reddit has its pluses and minuses, and so you're kind of bringing a Reddit style form of upvoting / downvoting, but on a more like a broader scale, right? So imagine if a Reddit shit poster can get enough points that he suddenly has favorability all the time over, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. It just seems a little bit over the top, doesn't it? For
it's just weird. It's just weird.
Yeah. And I think you made a really good point there, where it's like laziness, but I think they're trying to get at making the game self-sufficient, so they don't have to do anything when it's fully released, sort of thing, where it can just sort of like sit on its own on the shelf earning money, and they don't have to do anything for it. I think that's what they're trying to work towards. It's a little bit worrying, really.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking along Gotti's lines. I didn't want to bring it up because I was trying to put my head around it. But yes, the first thing that I thought of when I saw this slide was the Overwatch's experiments with some of this. And I wasn't like, I didn't think the connection was strong enough to really talk about it yet. But I did think of that as well.
Yeah, they're getting their questions handed to them on press cuts before they have to answer them, and now they're getting a citizen's rating. You know what I mean? It's like, this is brilliant. It's like we're literally in a communist fucking video game.
No, it's really funny, Avitus, because you actually beat me to it. But like the instant this showed up on the dev stream, like the first thing that popped into my mind was that one article I was reading about, like China and their like rating for citizens. That like instantly that was the thing, because like upvotes and downvotes on what people say, like in every line of it. They give us assurance that apparently, it's a smart system that learns, and having a lot of people downvote instantly won't really have the effect you would expect it to have. But even if it has some sort of fail safes, right, where it doesn't mute a guy because he gets like 10-20 downvotes in a second or two, you can't tell me that downvotes are not gonna, like still be affected, right? They are gonna be affected, and it's like I'm really interested in what's gonna happen. What's gonna happen when a guy gets to like 0 or minus or whatever
I just hope there's reports that start coming out as soon as this thing goes live of like anybody criticizing the game or the devs just suddenly start getting a really low communication rating out of nowhere.
Jesus,
I
hope
but
not.
Your point's not like, I mean, I don't necessarily think there, but what's going to happen is, depending on the culture of the team in question, is dissent is going to be squashed, right? So if you're not in the echo chamber, then suddenly your ideas aren't worth listening to. So some people that may be right about certain things or be expressing certain ideas that aren't popular, that suddenly gets subordinated over time, because that guy gets a reputation of people not wanting to listen to him, and the most prominent people in the community take advantage of that. And so you build an echo chamber of stupidity around yourself where dissenting ideas aren't heard. And that may be like a really, really dramatic reaction to it, but that's
where we're
how
heading.
it happens.
Yeah, Yeah, I know it's pretty scary, honestly. Like the first reaction is laughter. The second reaction is, whoa, like it's just like my overthought after sitting down with this and looking at it for a good while is this is gonna push even more people away from the game. Honestly, especially people like you guys said, people that are not necessarily a mainstream, people that are not gonna be following the wave of what, not gonna be agreeing with everybody, and they're gonna feel like shit, right? Like they're not gonna be able to have a position, good or wrong. Like maybe it's a bad position to have, but until now, the way people counter that bad position was trying to offer better arguments for themselves, right? Trying to give a reason why this guy is wrong. Now it's gonna be like like people don't even need to give arguments. They can just ask everybody they know to downvote that guy constantly
Right.
on the chat,
Well-
and that's all they need to do.
I don't want people downvoting my duck markers anymore. Okay, like if I lose the ability to post duck markers, my life is over.
Look, as overlord of a clan of 200 people, I am more than happy and welcoming this change. Silence people who dare say something against what I have to say.
Here.
That being said, I think we're good to go on to the next thing.
Yeah,
This
we
thing
should
is-
definitely. Yeah, but it's the most shocking one, so I guess this is why we kind of.
Oh, we got more shockers coming in.
Yeah, but I don't know. This is just like bad. Next shockers are whatever. This was a weird one. Yeah, I know. I don't know even where to pick off from this one.
Wait and see.
Yeah, it's such a weird presented mechanic, to be honest. This building as well looks like a bunker. It's not really a bunker. How is it gonna work? From what it sounds like, it's just gonna appear out of thin air because apparently they're not on the map, right? They're just gonna appear where there's gonna be frontier bases made by players.
I
This,
think
yeah,
they
go ahead.
described it as dynamic forts. If anybody remembers forts.
Yeah, I know what you mean, but like, are they gonna be on the map or are just gonna spawn in, like appear like
So they
mushrooms?
spawn in.
See,
This
that's
is
weird.
this is a developer intervention during high pop times. Like it's not automated. A moderator or a developer has to execute this as some kind of manual intervention when they feel the pop is a problem.
Which is weird to me. Like, if that's the case, it's even more weird. Like,
It's really weird.
getting into just fucking seeing Marfu dropping from the sky, putting down a building, and then just disappearing.
Yeah.
He ascends from the heavens to. All right,
Yep.
goodbye.
He's like, oh gosh, people are stuck in home region. Let me put this useless bunker out here with some supplies to give people the delusion that they're helping the faction.
I think this thing is going to be far from useless.
So Maybar's correcting me. Maybar's correcting me. He says it's auto.
It's out, right? Sorry.
I think it's going to be far from useless. I think this thing is going to be like almost too OP. Like I think this.
What?
I think they're gonna.
Well,
I think this thing is going to be.
I'm with Avitus on
like,
this one. Yeah,
they-
it's concrete, by the way, Kaz.
Like what you've got to remember is that they're trying to keep the fighting going in a region, so they're going to make this thing OP to make sure that the fight keeps going on the border.
You're
rather
not gonna
than,
be able
you know,
to kick out the enemy because of this.
Okay, now I see what you're getting at because it's because right now what we currently have is a normal frontier base, which is just a little tent, which could easily be destroyed.
By
and
a
almost
mortar.
always is by one guy with a mortar too.
Yeah.
So this is that solution to once you get a foothold, we're gonna give you a real hard foothold, so that way you don't have to rely on that single one guy can end your whole push.
The
mean,
issue. Good.
I'm sort of on the fence with it. I think it's going to. On the one hand, it might work. On the other, it might be completely bullshit. I think it's going to depend whether you're attacking or defending one of these things. Your viewpoint, really. But I think that they need to do something about obviously overpopping in regions, and if it works, it works. So I'm willing to see how it turns out.
My
But
concern is that like a push doesn't go well in a region because you put a harder base there. It goes well because the team is either prepared to use it or not prepared to use it. And so if this automatically spawns as some kind of pressure relief valve for population, you get a bunch of uncoordinated people spawning off of it and suddenly expect random logi and vehicle resources to assemble and rally behind that push. I think that's very optimistic.
think it's just going to reduce, like, for instance, let's just say, for argument's sake, a bunch of 20 randoms pushing to a region. Not a lot of communication, maybe one guy, telling them what to do, blah, blah, blah. But it's going to stop those types of pushes getting destroyed by the likes of Rusted Gaming or somebody like that coming up along the region border with a mortar, you know what I mean? Where that would end that push before, now it's going to take something a lot more substantial to bring one of these things down.
I think it also depends on what supplies it starts with, honestly. Like, if it starts with a pretty robust supply footprint, this is a lot more viable versus if it's just like a poor man's fob kit to keep some infantry skirmishing.
Well, my worrying is, like, attackers are gonna love it, I'm sure, but defenders are gonna have nightmares about this thing, because, like, especially, it doesn't look like it has variation. So if this thing, like, pops into the region, even if we are still at sticks and stones, you're not taking it down. That's concrete.
Oh, yeah, good point.
That's fucking concrete. You're not taking it down. You can bring whatever you want to it. The only way you might be able to bring it down is to, like, drain it out of whatever is inside with shirts and everything, and then shoot it with rifles for 2 million years.
Well,
which we're not going to be able to do. I was about to say, which we're not going to be able to do, because rifles are going to do nothing to it.
It just depends on how strong it is. Like, we're assuming a pretty strong health pool because it looks concrete, but for all we know, this is a straw house painted gray.
I mean,
I know they said it's bid. Yeah.
I'd be very surprised if that's the case. Like, I'm trying to think in the way that the devs think, and I'm thinking that if they want to keep a fight going in a region, they'll just sat around the table and said, right, we're going to stick a little frontier base on there with 10 times the health that it normally has, or 100 times the health that it normally has, or whatever.
So, like all things, it depends on the HP pool and the initial footprint of resources as to how good this thing is.
Something you got to remember as well in response to you, Razor, about the sticks and stones thing. Think about the circumstance in which one of these things can show up. Yeah, one of these things can only show up really once the middle maps have been lost, and most of the time, those maps take at least a couple of days to either fall into the colonial hands or fall into warden hands. So I think the first time one of these things can actually show up is maybe about a week into the war, something like that.
I mean, it depends, because, like, this war it went pretty fast, and
yeah, this was as these are going to show up in high pop wars. You know what I mean? So you can't really compare this war to a war in which one of these things is going to show up.
Not necessarily, because there's point on the map, on the middle maps, where the devs split it in such a way where you could take one relic base or one town on the edge, and that gives you access to the next map, bordering access, I mean. And if you do an invasion there, you're going to have this day one, no problem. That's what I'm trying to say.
And I think the update in which this comes out is also the update in which makes defenses.
Yeah.
So that's going to slow the progression of armies down as well. So that's going to further increase the time in which one of these things can actually show up in the world.
True.
So I think by the time it actually comes around, it'll be viable.
Something that you was pointing out, which is worth 30 seconds of attention. Map Beetle is not available near frontier borders anymore. And he's asking partisan highways along every border, which probably.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's hard to even imagine exactly how is it gonna affect things, but it's gonna be extremely hard to predict what are the implications of this as well. Because you can't see shit on borders now anymore either. It's hard, even you can see it, like, even right now trying to imagine it, it's really hard to predict how the outcome is.
Trying to give me a fucking aneurysm thinking about that.
Exactly, right? It's so hard to, accounting for everything that changes.
We just don't know the values, so just aren't gonna know.
Yeah, it's almost like we're debating, but we don't know what we're really debating.
I think we're going to have to really revisit this topic, and maybe look back on this conversation when we do revisit it, just to see what we got right, and what we got wrong.
So this is another. I mean, it's comparable to the first one, but it's not as shocking. But
Can I?
yeah, go ahead there.
I just want to say like this. This just looks like getting participation trophies
Hmm.
for like like oh you lost, but at least you did this, this, and that. It's like I don't know. It's just like you lost, but you should feel good about your loss though. You managed to held out to do all these things instead of getting a decisive victory. You managed to change it to a valiant defeat. Wow, like
I mean, I think me and Kaz had a conversation about this the other day
Yeah.
in the channel, and he brought up a really, really good point that I didn't really even think about to start with. Because when I first saw this, I was all up for it. I was like, yeah, this, whatever, it'll be, good if you're losing a war to, get whatever, to challenge yourself to do at least something. But then he sort of brought up the idea of one of the achievements is something like when you only own like 30% of towns, take a backline Logi town map, which sort of encourages the behavior of a massive scale naval invasion that has to travel a couple of maps at least through hostile territory to then reach its destination, which is fortified to all shit, to then take the town.
but that's
Now,
I,
that
I don't.
go on, Doc.
I don't want to cut you off real quick. I just want to chime in. The Colonials have been doing that for the past couple of wars. If you guys
Yeah.
remember, like
I
that
do.
was literally for them. Like
Yeah, but
that was 100% for them.
that's their choice, dude, and that's fair enough if they want to do that. But what we're seeing now is the developers of the game actually encouraging that behavior, when in actuality, that type of shit, and we all know the resources required to do something like that would be astronomical. It would be more than we could handle on our own. Attacking a backline Logi map, especially when you're losing the war at the late stages of the war, when resources are really thin. Like, do you really want to be taking like probably 40% of what your faction's resources to on an all-out assault on their Logi bases? No, that's not how the game works. That's not how the type of behavior you should be encouraging. The tactical thinking you should be encouraging at all.
It's a bad strategic play to encourage. Like, it's doomed to failure. Even if you perfectly execute it, you're losing that town. You cannot sustain it.
Absolutely. I mean, there is a couple of the achievements that I think are okay to be in the game.
Sure.
For instance, having 30% of your towns, or whatever percentage, like having 20%, 35% of your towns left, and then surviving 4 days. I think that's fine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think it's 4 or 5.
It's less than survive for longer than 3 days when your faction owns less than 20% of all towns. Like, I think that's fine. I think that's because that's been a complaint we've had, is that people just give up. So anything that incentivizes them to keep fighting, that is healthy. I'll give you that.
Yeah. A special operation needs to be taken out, though. That's ridiculous.
I don't think they actually looked at the in-depth effect of what you just said, Avidas. I don't think it was ever on their mind that
it just solidifies the statement, dude, that they don't play their own game. You know what I mean? I've heard it a million times from other people. I've said it, but this is just. I mean, you can't get better proof than that really,
Right.
that they don't play their own game or understand their own game
Well, I think understands the right word, because I think that a lot of devs looked at some of those Port of Rhyme naval landings, like, oh guys, that was so cool, that was awesome, high fives all around. It's just like, oh, I mean, I know that looks cool and great, but that is a tragic waste of your team's opportunity to gather good ground.
Yeah.
Well, what I would argue about that is you could basically do the same sort of invasion that the colonials tried, but do it in a relevant place, right? Like, why do you need to take it all the way in the back of nowhere, where you're gonna, even if you, like you said, even if you're gonna succeed at and do it to a T, you're still gonna lose that town. There's no way you're gonna ever actually like, we got Port of Rhyme, we're gonna start a pincer maneuver from this side. No, it's never gonna fucking happen. Right. Let's keep this moving, because my only 2 cents on this is exactly with. I'll give it back to you, Dar, but I just wanted to say, like, the first thing that came into my mind, as it was in your mind, is participation trophies. Like, it really felt like that thing, where everybody needs to get a diploma for for showing up. And Go ahead.
Look at all of the achievements. Like majority of them are for losing.
Well,
Majority of these are for losing.
I don't think necessarily that's the problem, but the problem is they're not focused on things like Avitus said, on things that would be healthy and constructive for the team and strategically wise, right? Yeah, some of them are like they pointed out, just like hold fast resistance when you have a few towns left and you need to defend and whatever, but they don't feel like they're focused on production, on other stuff like that really wins wars, right? On maneuvers that wins wars, for that matter. Anyway, let's keep it going because we still have a lot of stuff. We have a rain of sunshine here, so directly to dark for this one, because
I just realized it's a snippet. You don't have the gifs either, but
yeah, but yeah,
what you
didn't
would
have the
imagine
time.
seeing right there is there's supposed to be field guns like all around. You can't see them because they're planning on adding a line of sight similar to how you'd see infantry if you don't see them around the corner.
I'm really excited for this because you'll be able to I've always dreamed of having one of those pushable AT guns hid down an alleyway in an abandoned ward as a tank comes around the corner or something.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
I mean,
really
you
good
thought
too.
FAs were good before.
Oh yeah, and that's there's both high concerns and high praise for this subtle change, because now we can have field equipment essentially be safe just from its own counterpart. And what makes me even love it the most is, just like Avida said, is you can now use AT field guns, because that was the biggest issue, is they stick out like a sore thumb. The mortar half track will see it and then shoot it, or even other infantry as well. And you can probably use these equipment now exactly how you're supposed to have them, hitting to the side, though given and I'm not gonna say anything that if an AT gun was to catch a light tank off guard, light tank's still gonna get away. It's not gonna
Mm-hmm.
close the gap to get it destroyed, but you're gonna scare them, and that's all you're gonna do.
No matter what, this is positive for the game. This is a good change.
Oh yeah, all in all,
Yeah.
happy it has it there. I hope they can expand on it a little bit more.
Needed to happen 2 years ago, but here we are. So
There it is.
I'm gonna switch it
stretch
real
goal.
quick on my browser here so we can show it a bit, so it's just clear to everybody. There you go, there.
See, there you go.
so good. Just having an AT gun behind that house, a tank rolls along that road, take it off guard. That's exactly what they're supposed to be used for as well. Ambush tactics.
Yeah, this is one of the
And they said
Great.
something about making it easier to get in place guns to the front line, so that's going to be good as well.
That's interesting to hear as well. Emplacements we'll get in the future as well, so that kind of makes it kind of scary for, how do you deal with the howitzers defending? I'm just looking at for an attacking point of view, is because it's kind of easier to see, while you're defending, looking out, trying to find other people. But one thing I also is when you're trying to counter snipe using artillery, you don't really see infantry unless the conditions are really, really right. You got to be as close to the front as possible. Then you can see infantry and utilize it. But just trying to see how can I snipe a howitzer that's in a cheeky spot where I don't know where it is, or how do you even know if they have howitzers in place until you get the.
You're gonna have to. I think when it fires, it's gonna still show its muzzle smoke. So that's probably where you're gonna find the guns, or how you're gonna find the guns is by its muzzle smoke when it fires.
Yeah, also, Klaus was asking, wouldn't it work already with the walls, building a wall in game? And I feel like it works, but it also doesn't work because there's a lot of positions where with binos you can pretty much see it even behind walls. I generally don't have a lot of issues with it. You just need to have the angle.
Yeah, the issue is just the normal foxhole line of sight / draw distance, where Like even now in game, like right now, like you can try to find a howitzer. Everyone else says, yeah, it's over here. It's behind this watchtower. I'm looking behind the watchtower. I don't see it. It hasn't rendered on my screen yet. But all in all, it's a welcome change. I hope they get it fit in the update.
Well, I think it's going to add another skill level to artillery. So people that are good at artillery are just going to shine a lot more now, I think.
There's one more I think I missed in the slides. I just realized when I was looking in the dev stream real quick because it was similar with this one. So I'm just gonna switch to browser real quick to show it to you guys. It's one with the open top. Apparently, gunners on open top vehicles get a 25% additional sight range. So the open top thing doesn't become just a gimmick. And this one I also think is good, if you ask me, because, makes more sense now.
Yeah, it makes sense, and it's a good thing because, I mean, I can only imagine the conversation that they had where they were saying everyone was complaining about the open top. Should we change it? No, we don't want to change the model. What can we do? And I think it's a good move to make the sight range increased with open tops.
Need to
Here-
improve sight range for everything, honestly. But yes, this is
Yeah.
still fine.
That's where I'm trying to go at with it. Like, given it makes the open top like a reason for it, and to have people stop complaining that our vehicle is just inherently weaker now. But this should have been something they just gave to gunners in all vehicles. To be honest, like right now, look at the old sight range. That's what all vehicles have right now. If you're in a gun spot, you're aiming at the corner of your damn screen. Even in context of infantry gameplay as well, you're always aiming at the corner of that screen. But the new sight range, look how awesome it is now to like have that view distance. You still can't hit the guy past your effective range, but you can at least not have to reliably aim in the corner of your screen that much.
The fact that you have to aim to your corner screen from so many aspects of this game to be even just basic combat efficiency is kind of ridiculous. Like, we're all used to it and immune to it at this point. But one of the I know of players that have tried this game and would really consider coming back to this game if they didn't have to twist into the corner of their screen every 2 seconds. That mechanic is so oppressive that this is just too annoying for me to even begin to enjoy this game.
Klaus is also saying the vision bonus also applies to emplacement half trucks. Basically, anything that's open top, even in the non-traditional sense of open top. So if it doesn't have a roof above its head, all of it is gonna look like the new sight range, which is really good. And like Dark said, like if you guys remember that bug when you could have that huge distance viewing, like everybody was so happy about it. People call it an exploit and cheating or whatever. I don't know how much it was cheating because like I remember I saw a lot of it going on and people were showing that, like Dark saying, you couldn't shoot and couldn't see over the circle around you, right? You would just have a wider perspective around you, which made it easier for you to grasp, especially your position with vehicles, right? Because if you only see the corner of your screen, you might want to go for the turret of the tank, let's say. But you're not going to risk it, right? You're going to shoot as soon as you see the truck so you can back up. You know what I'm saying? So it really cuts in the gameplay experience, I think. Your inability to see in front of you, even if you're not in range, so to call it.
On Razor, why does the Colonial faction always have these open top vehicles? It's unfair.
I don't know. I don't think it's all about positioning. And yeah, I think there's a valid point of saying new players and such have a harder time to understand these mechanics. So that's where the disadvantage actually lies in, where the randoms don't really position themselves and take into account this thing of the vehicle, that it's open top. So you need to adjust to maybe getting decrewed. You need to adjust of not having a high ground above you, and so on and so forth. So I think there's from that aspect, that's a legit complaint. But I personally wouldn't mind if they did the reverse, right? Like count out the amount of open top vehicles the colonials have. I know we're up to 3 or something like that. I know Wardens have the half truck, which is open top, or at least the gunner is. But yeah, they should even the odds if needed. Although I guess they don't want to even the odds because Wardens being in the north is not really like a northern faction wouldn't leave their vehicles open top. that
Also,
wouldn't
I
make
know.
sense.
They just gotta give them an option to just and this one thing we'll see soon is that they could just put a tarp on top. You know what I mean? And not saying it's gonna solve anything, but at least visually and maybe in game, just like all they have to do is just put a little tarp that covers the top, and that's what normal like World War II vehicles kind of had, like, to cover that open top. You know what I mean? Like they would
Hmm.
just put tarps on top just to cover that top side.
Maybe they could do that with the upgraded versions of the vehicle or something.
I'm
That
saying
might be
even that. So.
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
that
I've
might
been
be
a
a good variation
twist.
sort of thing.
Yeah. And even if it's not realistic, not being able to decrew them when they had the tarp on would be acceptable. It wouldn't be the fucking end of the world, if you ask me. I know it's pretty silly because that tarp wouldn't prevent them from getting shot, but you don't have to report every like. There's a strong culture of not reporting everything to real life when it suits the vision, so to say. So this can be one of those cases. It's like the liberty between we're not gonna do this because it's not viable. It makes no sense in real life, and then putting something that makes no sense in real life anyway.
We're not making any pretenses of realism here. It's fine.
Exactly. Yeah, you can just go for it.
If I
Right.
can see a big heavy tank behind a building, I have no business seeing it when I'm looking at it, but I know it's there. Yeah, there's an issue with thinking real life and whatnot.
Right. Let's land on the most controversial overall, though. Still,
Oh
I'd
my
say.
god.
So, just to go real quick on it, small arms do nothing against buildings anymore, and arguably the best point a lot of people brought up, and I'll bring it up as well, is while it makes sense for like rifles and SMGs to stop doing damage to like concrete bunkers and whatnot, having machine guns do nothing to like foxholes is a bit silly because that's still a fucking machine gun you need to deploy and whatever. And the silliest part is, from what I understand, the vehicle mounted versions are still gonna do damage. So you have the same
no.
HMG on two scenarios. One where a player just uses it on the ground and it does zero damage, and one when it's mounted on a vehicle and it magically starts doing damage.
So this goes into this culture the devs made about every different caliber. It's its own thing, and depending on what vehicle it is, it does more or less damage, which is all stupid. Like, for example, I'm thinking small arms no longer does damage. I'm assuming everything from a rifle and scaling down. But then you're telling me an HMG doesn't, that doesn't work either. But the half track version will still do damage, and it's like,
See, I was under misconception about this whole thing. Now, when I first heard this, for some reason, I don't know why I thought I heard this, but when they announced this, I was all for it. I was like, great idea, it needs to, and in my opinion, it does need to happen. It does. Small arms for too long have done damage to these things that are meant to hold front lines and shit like that. It's fucking ridiculous, in my opinion. However, I thought that they were going to be introducing a limit to the defenses around certain tiers of things. Now, I had a conversation with Kazanski a couple of days later, and Kaz told me that no, there is no limit. It's going to be exactly how it is now. The only thing that is changing is the the resistance to small arms these things take. So you're still going to get these huge sprawling bases full of foxholes. Um, that obviously they're going to be a million times harder to kill now. I'm personally not worried about it for us because for a very, very long time, our guys have been practicing smokes and HEs and all of that thing. We know what we're doing in that regard. However, this is going to severely, severely impact how randoms can influence the war, because front lines are going to turn from ridiculous grinds into like god tier ridiculous grinds with these things.
Yeah, and the first thing that came into my mind was rip that poor private who's gonna fire his 10 clips into that foxhole and just like rage quit the game forever because he couldn't understand why is he not doing anything to it.
Yeah, I mean, foxholes are already ridiculously valuable for what they are. 50 BMATs for a foxhole is value central in my opinion. They're not even going to increase the cost of these things. So there's got 50 BMATs is going to get you a pretty much invulnerable structure. Can you imagine all of these things that are getting built on Logi roads in the back line?
Yeah, that's
You
one
know
of
what I
the
mean?
biggest concerns, really. Like,
That's the heart of the issue is cost efficiency, right? You just made it extraordinarily cost inefficient to deal with pretty much anything constructed. Now, well again, that may be off because we don't know, like we don't know what we don't know, and we don't know what the actual values are going to be to manufacture HEs and all of these things. We can make some assumptions about that, but we don't know what we're walking
yeah,
into yet.
but there's an argument, in my opinion. There's an argument you can make AGs dead cheap. Like they only cost
Yeah,
BMATs
that
and
doesn't. I did get that, and it doesn't really fucking matter, dude. Because
exactly.
I'll tell you why.
Exactly.
Tell you what. Day one of the war. Day one of the war. You can have a million fucking HE grenades. You put 4 veterans in a foxhole on a main Logi artery in 4 foxholes in a square, and they only have to cover their little corners and stuff like that. So they've got their backs covered. Nobody in there. I mean, it would take half a map's worth of people to assault that position and get away with it. You know what I mean? To take out
Well,
even one foxhole with a HE rush.
yeah.
And
It already that way. You still need at least a 2 to 3 demand, like 2 to 1 or even 3 to 1 advantage, even in current meta. To take with that situation.
Think about it. They've got no gas grenades though at the start of the war.
Oh, I hear you.
They've got all.
But even
know what I
the start
mean?
of war, like you would need if you're going to assault like a 4 foxhole line, even start a war, you're going to want at least 12 guys.
Yeah.
So therefore,
to have a realistic chance of taking
Well,
one foxhole
even
down.
max ranging them,
Exactly. Yeah.
So you're going to need at least double that number to even think about
That's
assaulting the position
ridiculous.
now. And how and if it's only 4 people doing that, can you if you did that on every major Logi artery, you'd break the fucking game.
You want to add to it? Let's add to it. Like AGs, okay, they're dirty cheap, right? They're dirty cheap to produce, but how heavy are they? How much they're gonna slow you down when you carry them? How many
So
can you carry?
This is the damn thing. This is the
Yeah.
issue. Is even now we can massively produce HEs, but it's not the issue. And we've always had abundance of HEs. It's just there's better things to use them on, and now you're just getting rid of those tactics to be like, well, now you only have to use these now.
Well,
So I'm reading all these changes. I'm like, okay, this is good. This is interesting. I'm waiting for just one sentence and just being like, okay, come on, guys, you can do it. You're almost there. You're almost there. And then I'm like, you're not gonna like. The key is when when structure is damaged, it cannot be repaired. That was the line I was waiting for, because that's the only thing that can make everything okay. You know what? It's worthwhile now. Because if you're still sending guys to lob HEs or anything, well, now that guy with nothing but BMAS is just going to repair for
Dark has
days.
an incredible point, to be honest. Like all of this means almost nothing. Adding this concept of repair being as it is right now, because if repair remains as it is right now, it's not gonna even matter if you can hit the AGs on the foxhole, as long as you don't hit all the necessary AGs to destroy it instantly. It's gonna be full health until you return for the second try.
in addition to that, so that defeats it at the start. During the Saturday up, I actually pretended for a moment and tried to get my head in the environment of what this would look like, because I saw we had 80 HEs in the town hall. I'm like, what the hell? I'll grab 3 of these bad boys, see if I can make them work. And we were kind of messing with a bunker complex when we went north, Razor. And that bunker complex up there where they brought the more half track to. Well,
Yeah.
I brought a few HEs and I was like, okay, I'm going to see if I can get some HE grenades on these rifle garrisons. And it took me like 2 or 3 attempts just to barely sneak an HE grenade in the pitch black of darkness with no colonial defenders. Because like we don't have smokes at that moment or anything. So like, how am I supposed to deal with a bunker with just HEs?
And I can answer that question, by the way, that you asked before, Razor, because it was asked in the Q&A section of the dev stream, if I remember correctly. The weight of the grenades is staying the same.
Oh, that's
and it felt
ridiculous.
Bad. It felt really bad.
Oh my
So
god,
I'm
that's ridiculous.
running around Saturday. 80% 3 grenades by kit, whatever, and I'm trying to figure out how to how to cozy up next to this rifle garrison, and I know that I'm going to get my 3 HEs off, and it's going to do like 6% damage to it for my 3 HEs, and I'm just like, this is going to be horrible. This is going to be really bad, really tough.
As a fanatic, like you guys, like people watching don't know, but you can ask, especially Kaz and Avitus on the infantry, how much I have been barking at them about use smokes, use AGs, start running drills. Everybody needs to utilize them, and as much a fan I am, and as much as I run around with them, is I'm telling you guys, like if there's no reduction on the weight, that is a total and utter disaster.
It's different talking about them now, because now they're used as a tool. They're getting turned into a meta. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but the problem is, I've been running against defenses, and Maybar can testify as well, because he's actually extremely skilled into this as well. I've been running at defenses for a long time, and I'm telling you, you can't carry more than 3 AGs realistically on you, and you're not going to land all of them probably perfectly either. So I'm sorry to say, but the meta is going to be what we do, just like run 20 people. So yes, I know the one, because I was thinking about it. What would be the one counter that the devs and whoever can offer against all of these points? And that counter is suppression, right? Apparently, suppressing the defense is going to be way more effective now. But that's like, I don't know. I don't know if that's enough considering all the minuses.
It's not enough. Like that's not been the issue. It's that it doesn't. You can't do a sufficient amount of damage in relation to the casualties you're taking to get the job done. Especially, or get it done in a way that's remotely reasonable. Because the casualties that you're expending, the resources that you're expending to do this is obscene. So even taking a basic Foxhole, yeah, I can smoke an HE down a Foxhole, but think of what I'm putting in to kill 50 BMATs at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what I was referring to before with the tool and the meta thing, like there's nothing wrong with HE grenades. You know what I mean? Like that needs to be said. HE grenades are great in my opinion. I love them. Like especially for like as soon as trenches came out and stuff like that, they were excellent because the arc of them, you can just lob them into an enemy trench and pretty much clear it out. You know what I mean? I love them. The problem is turning them from a tool, which is a viable bit of equipment that you can take for pretty much trench combat and several different situations, into a meta thing that you need to take as part of your primary equipment, is two totally different things. You know what I mean? And I think that leap is going to catch a lot of people off guard.
So I know we're. You want to say something, Kaz? I think I have more closing statement.
Yeah, no, go ahead and close it out though. I wasn't going to say anything useful.
So I know we're saying we're picking out all the problems with it, but what do you guys think we can do as like a solution for this? So they're doing this, and we know the HEs are currently the issues with HEs, but what would you guys say is a good like what can they could do better?
I mean, like you said, a good start would be, especially for Foxholes, is either increase the cost of it. They need to put more BMATs into it. This was one option. A second option is clearly fixing the repair rate on them, so they're not able to just do an Amish barn meme from Family Guy and just rebuild it every 2 seconds while you're away getting more AGs. There's a lot, like getting the AGs a bit lighter would also help, in my opinion. Yeah,
pull times and HEs, like that seems like a minor thing.
Yeah,
but that's one barrier to people carrying that kind of equipment, is they don't want us to take the extra 20 seconds to pull the kit.
It's not that for me. That's not the reason. Like if you're rushing a Foxhole and you're expected to do a decent amount of damage to it, like if you're carrying 3 HE grenades and your kit, you're going to be slow as fuck.
yeah.
You know what I mean? You're just going to get shot before you even get in
Exactly,
range.
yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the reason why I'm pissed off about it. Because even if you take a 1 HE grenade with your kit, you're significantly slowed down. You know what I mean? Playing infantry all the time, dude. The HE grenades are ridiculously expensive.
I feel the difference when I carry my pistol and my hammer.
Three simple changes would solve a lot of the problems that I have with this whole thing. knock foxholes up to about 120 BMATs, knock AT guns up to about 250, and half the weight of HE grenades, and maybe it'll be a little bit less rough.
Yeah, I mean, on the AT guns, it's probably not that viable necessarily to be extremely expensive. Although, because you wouldn't remove them with small arms anyway, so that's sort of a tank issue, not a AG issue. But yeah, definitely the increase of price on foxholes, and
Thank you for the
to
follow,
be
you
perfectly
non-essential
honest,
scum.
probably the most important part is the repair in my mind. Like that's the biggest broken mechanic there, right? Because if they can repair them as before, it's gonna be just a nightmare in my opinion.
Yeah, you've got a point there. There is one thing I am looking forward to, though, gentlemen, that is going to be made a hell of a lot more viable by this update. Siege trenches. Siege trenches are going to be OP
Oh
as
my god.
Oh
fuck
no!
now. You didn't even think about
Oh
it, did
my
you? You didn't
god.
even
No, I
think about
didn't.
that.
Oh god!
The only way they're going to
Oh
be able to stop
no.
the siege trench now is with explosives, guys. So yeah, it's going to be fun.
And so
Fun.
you're trading explosives for shovel time instead
Dude,
of just bullets.
I would trade anything for a buff to the fucking siege trench. The siege trench is my
Oh,
shit.
it's gonna be cancer.
Love the siege
I didn't
trench.
even think about that. But yeah.
Oh, okay. Let's go to the next slide. I think we have
Let's
juicy ones.
move on to
Oh my
the
God.
overpowered, the new overpowered vehicle.
Ah, thick ass boy.
Damn, he's thick. It's like we're all in a break room and like, ding. What's the worst thing about the siege tank? Now let's get that idea and slap it into a field gun.
Hey,
That's the only.
we wheeled this thing out of the museum if you want to use it. Okay.
The thing is, for me, like the range is still impacting my brain, to be honest. Because like, can you imagine having this
Yeah.
made in real life and just like firing it for 25 meters?
If
Cannons
no,
can fire faster or fire further than that.
you'd be able to feel the fucking heat from the explosion on your face in that fucking range. Holy shit!
Well, just to keep it honest, I think the similar the colonials on the siege tank. If you'd build a siege tank in real life, the projectile landing would damage the tank.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. I mean,
Of course.
let's talk about in-game viability though for this thing, and not just how ridiculous.
Yeah, I know. I couldn't help myself. I'm sorry.
This like in-game viability. Yeah, the siege tank is pretty fucking useless to begin with, but the only thing that it has to its
Armor.
advantage is the fact that it's fucking mechanized. It can at least
move.
retreat out of there.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? This thing, I'm going to tell you now, this thing is going to have one primary good use for it, and that's cleaning up concrete bunker bases after they've been conquered. That is all it's going to be fucking used for. I'm telling you. Like there might be the odd occasion, where we're trying to get a YouTube like clip or something like that as of actually using it. You know what I mean? Where we roll up fucking 10 of them or something like that and try and do some damage with them. Because, if they're deployed en masse and these things are easier to ship to the front like they said they were going to be, then, maybe it could be used. But when it's all about how much it's going to cost, though, you know what I mean? And the shells are quite expensive and shit like that. So why would you not reallocate those resources elsewhere? You know what I mean? If it's going to be an early game artillery, then maybe we'll see. It just from its stats and its appearance, I'm not seeing its viability.
I'm
That's the
gonna
thing, too, is,
say
like-
the most important stat in my mind is speed. If it's fast enough, it might actually be viable, but it needs to be goddamn fast for something you push. Because you need to let's just imagine how this would work, right? You would smoke the area in front of you properly, and then you'd probably push in 3 or 4 of those real quick, fire them at the enemy defenses, pull them back, right? So in my mind, in this little mock-up I've just presented to you guys, the most important thing is speed. How fast can you push them up, fire them, pull them back.
I think it might be able to be used in conjunction with smoke howitzers and stuff like that. That might be a good use for them. There is, like I said, there is tactics that they are viable to be used in. It's just, I just can't see it though. Like
You
on a
use
mass
the
scale.
120 millimeter smoke shell to bring in your 25 millimeters.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Well, the
just takes
decrewing
a-
part is the one that's really gonna suck on these things, but
And it really is, because when you have something that's low cost, it means it's a high turnover rate for the enemy faction. So that means if it's cheap to produce, we're going to be producing a lot of them. And guess what? It's going to be in the enemy hands, because just like every field gun that's in close combat, it will
change
succumb to
hands.
the enemy once they see it, and it will be in their hands.
I think
Now
these
the
things are
only
going to
limit to
change hands
that
a
is
lot.
that. Oh yes, but one thing they did that I'm actually like happy is they put a shell capacity, so you can't overjack these things with so much shells now.
Yeah, that's
So
good.
that's like, yeah, even if you lose it,
You
you're not
won't
gonna be,
lose fucking
like-
100 of them shells. Yeah, but I still, again, I'm just really hoping they get the speed right on them. If they get the speed right on them and they're fast, like fast support guns, sure, maybe you can find a use for them.
Even if they get the speed right, though, dude, what you've got to think about is you can't just think about us using them. Yeah,
I know,
because that's where I was thinking about. As soon as you start thinking about it, you think, right, well, how could we use that to attack a bunker base and do our tactics and blah blah blah. But that's not what you've got to think about when you really. You've got to think about a bunch of randoms trying to use this thing. You know what I mean? And like, the only way that this is going to be viable is with like a plan in place. You know what I mean? A real plan in place with structure behind it. That's the only way that this is going to be viable. Like, if a bunch of randoms are wheeling this thing down the road, like, what chance do they have? Really? You know what I mean?
Yeah, Maximilian is saying in chat you'd rather have this as an emplacement gun, and I agree. Yeah, I would have, like, if you had an emplacement mortar similar to this, but it's just an emplacement, you can put it down and use it. Even if you would have to creep it up every 5 meters, I wouldn't fucking mind. That would be way better, because you knew you would have the health. You would know the enemy cannot just fucking push it back to their lines if you decrew it, and so on and so forth.
So the thing is, with everything, there's always pros and cons. Like this is just 100% of a con from the siege tank. You know, it's like again, I agree with you 100%.
Downgrade.
The speed is like what makes, comparing it between the siege tank and this, like, vastly a better vehicle, because it can just leave. It fires and it can just get out of there. This, it doesn't matter what you do. It's gonna be real hard.
I mean, if I was, I'd give it a slightly longer barrel and give it a 45-meter range, and that might have been a bit more viable. 50-meter range, something like that, might be a bit better.
So
I would say an increase on its range, and then it'd be like, that would be like, at least it's like not a straight just 100. All of it is bad.
At least you wouldn't have to push it into the fucking range of the AT gun that you're firing at.
Dark, I understand you want me to show.
Oh yeah, so this coincidence that they've modeled it off of kind of made me laugh, though, because I love it personally. Fraser can show it without.
Give me a sec. I was going on the wrong browser there for a second. My bad.
Almost all of his inappropriate Romanian tabs.
Oh my god!
Looks exactly like a grot cannon, and it's like,
yeah.
We're gonna fire rips out of it instead of the shells. Please say yes.
We're putting rips in there. But that's another thing I could use, is to make it like, at least make me feel a little happier. But it's just a pure coincidence. But at least I have something I can like.
We can
Toast
fire
all of us, boys.
We can fire the rips, or we can fire the Germans. You pick.
I don't know.
The rips first.
Germans might not be happy about it.
Well,
they give us more rips, so we need them. They're a viable source.
Yeah, well, at least it looks cool. I was swimming for a
look at it.
Yeah.
Klaus sent me a fully painted battle tank, or you're getting fired out one of these things.
I mean,
Get to the next
you
one.
can fit Klaus, but good luck fitting Hans in there. Right, let's go for the.
This is like, I don't want to hate it, but I love everything on the model. This is one of the rare occasions where every single inch of this vehicle has something about it. There is no wasted space because everything there, it just looks fantastic. Like I like, this is like my new favorite model now because it just looks so damn good.
The only problem is it's green.
I mean, of course, but other than that, like, I love exactly like the risks they did to make this vehicle.
Yeah,
like, it just looks so damn good.
I'm glad you have that opinion, because I didn't want to have to disagree with you. I did. Yeah, I love this vehicle. I think it really does have a place. Very good move to put it in. We'll have to see how it plays in game, and we're going to have to see how annoying this thing is. But I think it's going to be usable, definitely usable. The only thing that has me worried about it is how they sort of talked about it. They talked about it like it's supposed to be used for flanking yet again, you know what I mean, instead of the but they did talk about its viability for long range road engagements. It's almost as if they took our quote from the last video that we did about tank engagements, because they pretty much said it word for word, where they said, you know, tanks are engaging on roads and backing up and blah blah blah. And I think this is their answer to that. But they did mention something about flanking as well. So we'll have to see how it works, and we'll see if it can do its job. The main thing about it, though, it's always going to come back to who's driving it and who's manning it. And if this thing is not manned by veterans and it finds itself out of position, it's going to die incredibly quickly, like ridiculously quickly. It's definitely not a tank to be pushed forward on the front line or something like that.
So for me, go ahead there. I'll just
go. You can go. You can go.
For me, again, it comes down to speed once more. I don't know what the fuck is up with this update, but everything seems to be related to speed. I feel like that's the thing that's gonna make or break this vehicle, period. Because first of all, the engine is on the front, and we all know what having the engine on the front means. Every shot is gonna just like do extreme amounts of damage and also have a chance of rupturing the fuel tank, right? And I have seen, going back to cruise as well, I have seen so many times Silver Hands just accelerating towards a mortar half track that was trying to get in range to hit them, and being able to catch up to them, shoot them, destroy them, and back up before the mortar half tracks could get into behind the friendly lines. And mind you, the mortar half track is probably the fastest combat vehicle into the game right now. So if this is not as fast as the half track, at least, it's gonna fall prey to Silver Hands all day long. I'm almost convinced. The extra range is not gonna do much, in my opinion, at least. If two Silver Hands get in range and fire all 4 guns on it, I feel like it should be gone. Most likely, at least disabled, if not.
I mean, I'm sorry, dude, but one Silver Hand getting in range of this thing, if it hits it with both shells in its engine, it's going to be disabled, dude.
Yeah, but it's bouncing and other mechanics to keep in mind.
True.
So it might bounce the first shell and maybe second one penetrates, probably not enough to disable it and such.
So one thing we go at is that, the dreaded 45 range, and, Colonials didn't appreciate when the Wardens had such a thing. But here they are, I'm not here to complain about the 45-meter range. I think it fits well for what it's trying to do. And if this vehicle is in a situation where it's by itself against a Silver Hand and thinking it could take on the Silver Hand, then, like, a bad thing is going to happen. Pretty much like what we told the Colonials how to deal with the Ascension, is to close the gap.
Follow you, non-essential scum.
Like, that's all it is that first shot, and that's it. But you can still win the engagement as long as you get close. But one thing I want to let you know is that this is just a normal light tank flopped and reversed. So my mentality is, it'll probably be slow going forward, but reversing, it could probably just book it.
You know where I think this thing is going to shine more than anywhere else? Cleanup after a tank engagement. So you've got a colonial tank out in the field burning. You've got a couple of warden tanks out in the field burning. This thing rolls in from the side and cleans up the warden tanks. That's where I'm thinking it's going to be good for.
I should have just called it the Reaper or something like that, because it completely seems more.
That's a good fucking name for it, actually. The Reaper, yeah, for that exact reason. Yeah, that would be sick.
Just by off of that, we've already created a better lore name than like AT Sniper Light Tank is like what?
Yeah, well, we can just like how the Americans like abbreviated certain things, like they called the Zero, the Japanese airplane, the Zero, when it wasn't called that or something. We could call this the Reaper, just a nickname for it among our men.
No, but yeah, it's exactly how you put it is like what I think as well, or it should be utilized is during your main, because that's the main thing that Colonials have struggles doing is finishing and closing the gap, and this they can reliably get the extra firepower to finish off a vehicle.
Just to make
Evergreen,
sure,
Evergreen.
Go ahead.
Evergreen brings up a good point as well. It'll need to shift its entire hull to bring its gun to bear. So it hasn't got a movable turret, or at least it doesn't look like that.
No, it should be fixed. That's how I understand it as well. Like,
yeah, I think if it could rotate its turret, it would be a bit pointless to have an engine on the back when they just probably reverse everywhere.
Mike, to answer your questions, all BTs are out of the game until later in the year.
What?
Yes, all BTs are out of the game. They're not going to have any BTs in the game for the foreseeable future. Battle tanks have been cancelled.
So is it officially they're removed from the game, or is it just on ice?
Cancelled for now, probably to be nerfed from, at least that's how I understand.
It's real funny, because, and I feel like we're allowed to say this now because it's already been like years, but back when they first had the closed testing server, when they were first introducing the BT, I remember like we were trying to tell everyone like Foxhole doesn't need this high expensive this very high coordinated vehicle that this high powered end game vehicle. It just needs something that's an upgraded compared to the light tank. And then just hearing that right now that they're closing it is just like a like a good scoff laugh, like wow, really? Like,
yeah, well, apparently they're gonna come back, but we don't know in what form exactly.
I think they'll definitely come back because they're too cool not to come back. I think the problem is with them is they're a little bit too cool, so everybody wants one. You know what I mean? And the end game wars do tend to turn into 50 battle tanks and 3 infantry versus 50 battle tanks and 3 infantry. So I can kind of see where they're getting at. The thing with the battle tank is it just needs to be made a hell of a lot more tougher and ridiculously a lot more expensive, and have like 3 of them per team. You know what I mean? Seeing one of these things should be fucking rare, but they should be ridiculously hard to kill. You know what I mean? You shouldn't even be able to have more than one in a map, in my opinion, at a time.
Yeah, I do agree that the solution to stopping the spam is not removing them, but just making them expensive, or like you said, putting some proper limitations on it. Because I don't. Maybe I can understand the upgraded versions kind of being taken off because they had their own issues. They were getting bugged or whatever. But I don't know. Maybe a weaker variety of battle tanks should have still been kept. It's a hard discussion if you ask me, but
it's taking away content. No one wants that. That's just
I mean, they didn't say they're going to be gone forever, so I'm just expecting them to be nerfed when they come back or something like that, or just probably turned into different vehicles that resemble the battle tank.
I mean, I do think that we need a hell of a lot of variety of tanks in the game, because I think that gets a lot of draw from people that would potentially buy the game. So I think having a lot of variety of tanks is a good move. So I do think the battle tank has a place. I just don't think it should be mobilized on the scale that both factions mobilize it on when it's unlocked. Because I mean, and you can't blame both factions for doing that, because it's obviously it's the coolest thing, it's the toughest thing, and it brings a lot of firepower to bear. So obviously you're going to pick that over something that's slightly less expensive. I think that bringing the battle tank back, limiting its number, and making it a lot more tougher is the way to go, rather than just nerfing it and keeping it how it is, because it's not going to fix the problem. You're still going to have 20 battle tanks roaming around, because however much you nerf it, it can't be nerfed to such a degree that that the shell does less damage or something like that, because it'll change how other guns fire and stuff like that. So it's just not viable to nerf it, in my opinion. It's not going to change the number of tanks that are going to come out on the field by the end of the game.
One thing I really like to point out real quick, and I want to make a little sneak in the future here and call that the complaints against Silverhands are going to be even more ridiculous after this change. Think about it. Now the battle tanks are no more. Battle tanks were the main counter to Silverhands.
Yep.
So now this AT tank, sniper, whatever you want to call it, Reaper, is supposed to be the counter to the Silverhand. But I do not think that's going to work like that. There's no way this thing is going to counter a Silverhand on the field. No fucking way. So what's left? What's left to counter the Silverhand? Light tanks? I have a few videos of how that goes.
Yeah.
Doesn't look well.
So this is going to be tied in with a lot of other factors that are going to be changing. I would assume, just presumptuating the battlefield, where now you can conceal AT guns, and now you can you have this vehicle here that's more suited not to be in the front line, but be behind a light tank. You get what I mean? And I get you 100% where you're coming from. That against the Silverhand in most of its conditions, you will lose from it because it's got more DACA than it has than you. But that's not if they're fighting the Silverhands head on, they're gonna lose 100%. If they fight anything with the Silverhand, they will lose. That's not like that. That's playing at the enemy's strength. We want you to fight us head on with our Silverhands because that's where our guns are at.
I think the problem, I mean, I brought it up a million times, but the problem with that is that there's not much room to do anything other than fight the enemy head on in a lot of circumstances. You know what I mean? Especially with randoms. So it's going to be one of those things where I think the Colonials are going to overestimate this thing's ability to outrange the Silverhand, and then the Silverhand's just going to gain the relevant meters that it needs to launch a shell at this thing, and it's not going to last very long.
Oh yeah, especially how I'm with Razor with that first volley of the 2 shots, and it's like, oh man, like I see it being devastating. All it has to do is close that 5-meter gap, and it's over.
And with the acceleration of the Silverhand, that 5-meter gap is not going to mean anything, especially because the shells in this game don't act like actual tank shells; they splash.
Did they not nerf the Silverhand speed yet?
No, the speed is the one thing that was nerfed. They nerfed everything else.
So this is getting 45-meter range. Is the Warden half-track going to get the same treatment as well?
From what I understand, no, but the Warden half-track does get the gunner visual bonus. So
yeah, but so does this as well. So I'm just like this is just looking at 100% like upgraded version. You get what I mean? Like
yeah.
It should increase the speed of the. No, it should increase the range of the mortar half track as well, in my opinion. You're right.
With the AT half track. If I said mortar half track,
you mean the AT half track?
Thank you for the follow, you non-essential scum.
Because that's the only thing I'm like, because it's essentially an upgraded version of that.
You don't get extra range on the.
I mean, I suppose the one thing that's good about the Warden AT half track is that you do get a degree of
mobility of the
turn,
gun.
don't you? Your gun. Yeah. So that's something that this doesn't have. So.
But
Also,
beautiful model though. I love it.
The other thing that this thing no problem. The other thing that this thing will not have is a silver hand in front of it.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. Oh, I love the look of this. This is like, rarely do they ever produce such a beautiful looking vehicle, and this is just a joy to look at.
I just can't wait for the update that's going to bring out paint jobs, because then we can make it look truly beautiful.
Exactly.
Put a big Callahan face on the side of it, ready to go. Right, I think we have talked about this vehicle to death. Shall we move on?
I can just look at it for a couple more minutes.
Yeah, I know you can, but
looks already so good.
We're already going pretty long now. So
no, Maximilian, no. Settle down. Okay. No, we don't say the T word around here.
Oh no, you did it now. You made Avitus go in this true form. I do want my Puma, sir. I do want it, but I don't like the. I don't necessarily want the colonial version of the Puma, which is the ATF truck. I'm just hoping, we get something like that, but for wardens, and it's fast. And I know they can put whatever they want for a gun, but not an AT. I have not an AT rifle. Something else.
I know y'all been playing War Thunder, but one of their premium armored cars was like a Puma with the Pac 40 on it.
Ooh.
Something like that. I don't know. It looks good. I don't have money to buy it, but just something I'm thinking about,
Well, I think my wishes are not gonna probably come true because, although who knows, maybe an AC with a bigger caliber gun. That's the biggest thing I can hope for.
Didn't the Colonials get like something like that though?
The AT-AC, yes, but it has a AT rifle that automatically has auto fire, which is pretty good.
Yeah. I don't think they'll bring out another model like that though.
Yeah, we already got the heavy AC, which is the exact opposite of what I want. So I want a speedy boy, not a fucking lazy, slow ass car.
Right. Well, talked about a lot today. We're approaching the 2-hour mark. I think this might be the longest one ever, gentlemen.
Yeah, time to cut it. Enough's enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Just trying to milk them Twitch partnership hours.
Jesus Christ.
Anyways. Well, I am cautiously, very, very cautiously optimistic about all of this shit. But like I say, we're just gonna have to wait and see how it all plays out. I can't see a lot of viability for a lot of the stuff. Some of the stuff I'm very excited for, the hiding AT guns and stuff like that. That's been needed for a couple of years, like I said. Yeah, we'll just have to see how it plays out. And thanks for listening, guys.
Dark. Closing statement.
That's all I got. I feel like I said enough. 2 damn hours, and I want to go to sleep.
Yeah, guys. So I think going on Avitus's bit there, I think there are reasons to stay optimistic, but I will never stop ranting until I actually see them working on a regimental system or a fucking communication system or whatever to improve the tools we communicate with. I'm gonna maintain that until I see any work on that. So that's still my primary focus. But
I do got a closing statement.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, but I really do hope they change and focus on what's really crippling Foxhole. What's really stopping people from wanting to play and whatnot. They really got to focus on that grind and like the worst elements of Foxhole. That's what they really got. Hopefully they fix that and take a good look into it.
Agreed. Remember, gentlemen, stay out of those foxholes and make sure to cook those grenades nice and spicy.
Pull up the chungus. Fire the lobber.
Farewell, guys.
See you guys later. Thanks for joining, guys. Bye bye.
Goodbye.